and welcome to another video. This is episode 28 of the podcast. It has been another week, and so I have a couple of things that I would like to share. So yeah, I think we should just get started. First, I would like to talk about the progress that I've made on this sweater. This is the midvinter men's sweater. It's actually a free pattern from Jarbo, so I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. Jarbo is a Swedish yarn manufacturer, and this is actually the first time that I am knitting. No, this is actually not the first time that I'm knitting with their yarn, the second time. So to give you some information about the pattern, it was designed by Stine Hulgaard Johansen, and it is a saddle shoulder construction sweater. So basically you start off with the rib, then you pick up stitches here for the saddle shoulder. So you just knit this strip here on both sides, and then you pick up stitches along the front and the back, knit all the way down until you have finished knitting for the armholes. Then you take both sides, the back and the front, you connect them, and then you knit in the round all the way down, and then you do the sleeves afterwards. With the sleeves you just knit straight, and then at some point you start shaping for the end of the sleeve, so you just decrease over an amount of stitches or rows or rounds, I should say. Yes, so I have mentioned before that I had a couple of issues with the pattern. There were some translation mistakes, and so I have been having to refer to the original Swedish pattern to actually sometimes understand what's going on. And for the most, it wasn't really that big of an issue. I could figure it out quite easily. The only problem that I kind of ran into was when it was time for me to start knitting the sleeves. So they gave me a number of stitches that I had to pick up here on the side, and then they put in between brackets roughly 2 stitches per 3 rows. So what I tried doing was picking up 2 stitches every 3 rows, and I ended up with far too many stitches on this side. So I took out the stitches that I picked up, and I eventually managed to reach the amount of stitches that they wanted me to have. The only problem is that I could only reach that amount of stitches if I used a ratio of 1 to 2, so picking up every other row, and that made the sleeve so tight. So it was puckering a bit, not too noticeably, but when I made my boyfriend wear this, he was so uncomfortable. And I checked the Swedish pattern and it said the same thing. And what I eventually decided to do, because I think I'd knit maybe 20 rows of one sleeve, I ended up blocking this this entire sweater, and then I made my boyfriend wear it again, and he said again, it's far too tight. So that kind of sucked. So I ripped all of that out, and I have now taken my book, I think it's called Simple Sweaters or something like Simple Knits for Men's. It's a Japanese book that contains a lot of patterns. It's basically a knitting pattern book for menswear. So that's what I did. I looked at a number of the designs, and then I kind of decided how deep I would like my armholes to be, and then I'm just gonna do essentially my own thing. I think I'm done with this pattern for now. I don't think I really need to look at anything else from this pattern, and I'm just gonna do the rest by myself. Also, I don't think it's gonna be all that hard for me. I will say this though, I have been knitting a lot of things flat recently because I started getting into vintage patterns, and I just found another advantage, or well, I experienced another advantage to knitting flat. So I would have had a bit of a problem if I would have essentially knit all the way to the armhole, then knit in the round, and then picked up the sleeves, because what would have happened was that probably the armhole would be too tight for my boyfriend and he wouldn't be able to fit the sweater. And so I would have to, I don't know, either unravel a section of the sweater, or I would have to cut open the section in the round that I would have knit. But luckily I decided to just knit the front and the back completely flat, because I want this sweater to last very long, and I figured that just knitting this flat and then seaming it would add some extra stability and would make my knit a bit more durable. So I'm very happy that I did that, because before I started working on the sleeves, I had already knit well, not this much, but a chunk of the back section, and I now don't have to rip that out. So I'm very happy with that. I have decided to dedicate mostly my Sundays and Mondays completely to the sweater. So hopefully within 2 weeks it's going to be done. I'm very, very excited for this to be finished, and I'm already like craving a new large sweater project. So I think that's everything for this section. Yeah, also, wait. No, I completely forgot to tell you about the yarn. So yes, the yarn. This is jarbo svensk ull 3-ply. So it's 100% Swedish wool, and it's worsted weight yarn, 90 meters per 50 grams. Yes. So actually, this is not the first thing that I wanted to talk about, because as you can see, I have finished my vest. So what's it called again? Yeah. Yeah, so this is the Easy Cable vest. This is a vintage pattern that I got from freevintageknitting.com. Yes, so to give you a bit more information about the original pattern, so it's from a book called Vest Fashions in Wool by Hilde Fuchs, I think. Yes, so this is from the 1960s, 1969 to be exact. And yeah, I took this pattern a couple of weeks ago because I thought it would be a fun and pretty accessible, easy vintage pattern to knit, pretty straightforward as well. As you can see, I made a lot of modifications. I've spoken about this before. Instead of using the bulky yarn that was used in the original pattern, I used some Aran Wake yarn. I've been trying to get rid of this huge stash of drops Nepal that I've had for years now. So this was a really good project for that. And yeah, what else did I change? Yeah, I changed the cables. I used a 12 stitch shoe horseshoe cable. Yeah, I used a 12 stitch horseshoe cable instead of the original cable, and then I used an I-cord instead of crocheting, and then I used a double button band. So first off, the construction, or maybe the yarn as well, and the needle sizes. So I used drops Nepal, which is 65% wool and then 35% alpaca wool. The yardage is 75 meters per 50 grams, like I said, an Aran weight yarn, and I used the color brown, which is 06112. As for needle sizes, I used 4.5 for the body and then 4 millimeters for the button band, the I-cord edge, and then the ribbing at the bottom. Yes, as for the construction, pretty straightforward vintage construction. I knit the back separately from the two fronts, and then I seamed the sides together. And this is not in the original pattern, but basically what I did is I used Judy's Magic Cast On. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. And I just knit a very tiny tube, and I knit that all across here. Well, I knit that separately, and then I sewed it on. I sewed it as I was going. Yeah. And now we have what I have here. So what is that to say? Yeah, while I was knitting this, I also recorded quite a lot of footage, so maybe I'll be able to make a vlog and talk a bit more in depth when it comes to this. So I'm actually recording this way later than I usually do because my mom came to visit, so I just had to switch on some lighting. But yeah, this is the inside of the vest. Yeah, you can see the seams here. Yeah, so yeah, what to say about this? I think, yeah, the experience. I really enjoyed knitting this up. It was very addictive in my opinion. I think that's also because I knit this all flat. A lot of the sections were just really short. I mean, the front for the most part is 38 stitches, around that, and then, well, yeah, 38, and then here way less, and then here at the sides maybe like 52 or something, and then the bottom again is 38. And so yeah, I just felt like I was flying through this project. I really enjoyed having to completely rewrite this pattern. I learned a lot about modifying things also in terms of just converting stitch counts and all that type of stuff. That was really interesting. This is also the first time that I did a double button band. So the button bands that I have been familiar with, or at least I've seen how to make those on YouTube, usually they are knit as you go. So you do, I don't know what it's called, I think it's, you do an Italian cast on and you do double knitting. And I don't know, for some reason I thought, I think that if I just seam this on, it'll give me a bit more stability. And I really wanted this to be a sturdy piece because, as you've seen in the original picture, the pattern is pretty, well, it seems like it has quite a bit of negative ease. It really hugs around your body. It's supposed to hug around your body, and it gives off a very feminine feel. So that is something that I was going for. And I will say I was a bit disappointed when it came out slightly larger. Well, I mean substantially larger, because there's no negative ease here. There's well, I wouldn't say a lot of positive ease. I would say maybe like, I don't know, 5, maybe even 10 centimeters of positive ease. And I was a bit confused about that because I was fairly sure that I had pretty accurate calculations. And then I checked my notes, my conversion notes, and I figured out that I had chosen the wrong size. I don't know how that happened, but I went for a size 16. Maybe I was too scared that the piece would be too small. A size 16 is for people who have a bust circumference of, I think, 34 to 35 inches, and I have a 33-inch bust, and so I've simply just knit a size too large. But actually, I don't mind it. I still really, really like how it looks. However, I do want to try and make the smaller size. So I still have loads and loads of drops Nepal left. So I'm gonna try and knit a dark green version of this at some point. Yeah, so this was actually a success despite picking out the wrong size. I'm very, very happy with it. I think one thing I'm specifically happy with is that I didn't compromise when it came to seaming. I really tried my best to seam everything as well as possible. I mean, like, the button band looks pretty darn crisp to me. Oh yeah, also another modification. Well, I've spoken about this before, but I did a 3-needle bind off here, so you have this ridge. At first I wasn't too sure about the ridge, but I actually, well, I liked it first, and then I was looking at it when I was making the second sleeve, this sleeve, and then I wasn't too sure about it, and then now I actually quite like it. Yeah, so another thing that I also learned, I guess, was when it comes to buttons, I made a mistake by knitting up the button band by starting off with the side with the buttons. And so I also seamed some buttons as I was going, because I was knitting the button band, and then at certain intervals I would also stitch them together just to see how it would look. And I was struggling when I finally came to this section, because I found myself having to coordinate the buttonhole to the button instead of the other way around, which is far easier, because if you mess up the button placement, you can always cut this off and then re-stitch it to the vest. But when it comes to a buttonhole, that buttonhole is staying there unless you want to unravel everything and then go back and choose another row where to do this buttonhole. And so I had some issues when it came to the last buttonhole. I had set also this button a tiny bit lower here, and I was just struggling getting it to fit. And so eventually, I had to reknit this section of the button band, take out all of the seaming, and then put the buttonhole a bit lower. And then I cut off the button, and I placed the button so that it would actually look quite nice. So yes, this is the vest. I'm super happy with it. I love also how sturdy it is, how squishy, and I just love it. And I'm very excited to see how I'll improve with the next one. I will definitely not be slipping any stitches again, because that made seaming much more of a pain. I learned the hard way that you really shouldn't slip your stitches when you want to knit, when you want to seam two pieces together afterwards. Yes, so that's everything for this vest. Then I have a bit of an update on a pullover that I have been working on for quite some time. It was actually in my autumn 2023 plans, but I ended up not finishing that. Actually, I only finished one thing from that list, but I'm still gonna try and finish all of them in due time. But it is the Sailor Collar pullover designed by Mariko Oka for Daruma. It's published in Daruma Pattern Book number 8, and I used onion yarn, onion number 4, in the color Cola number 8, and that yarn is 70% organic wool and then 30% nettle fiber, and the yardage is 130 meters per 50 grams. Yeah, as for needles, I am currently just using 4mm needles. So the construction is that this is flat. You first knit the back with some shoulder shaping using Japanese short rows. You do the same for the front, and then as you're knitting the front, you are creating the sailor collar. So yeah, I'd already shown that I finished the back. It's pretty oversized, but yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to see how it'll look on me. And then for the longest time, I've been working on the front, and actually, yeah, this week I try to set aside a day where I would just focus on it. And so this is how much I've knit of the front. So yeah, I've done one half here. So yeah. So yeah, this is how it looks. This is the collar part. The collar is just twisted rib here. And what you do is that you knit the collar separately, and then once it's long enough, you attach these two sections. Well, there's supposed to be a section here. You attach them at the back, and so then you knit down, so you have the sailor cape thingy at the back. Yeah, so this is how the twisted rib is looking. You make a couple increases here at the side, at the neck edge, but you also make some increases at the side here. Why exactly, I'm not too sure, but I don't know, I'll see eventually. The annoying thing though, however, is the way that they ask you to increase is not that you do a make one left or make one right. They actually tell you to do a yarn over, and then the next row right above the yarn over, you do a twisted stitch. And what happened was that I got, well, you can't really see them anymore, but I had all these holes in the fabric, so I had to go back in with a crochet hook and redistribute the tension there. And then at some point I just decided to just not do the yarn overs anymore and just do a make one left or right, and it has worked out so far. So I'm not too sure when I'm going to be finishing this. I guess the hardest part, or the largest sections, single sections, are done, I guess. Yeah, maybe I can finish off the arm section someday this week, and then I can, whenever I would like, I can just start on the arms. So the pattern does say that you seam the shoulders, you seam at the shoulders, which I don't think I'm gonna do. I didn't cast off at the shoulders here, nor did I do it on the back side here. I think I'm just gonna do a Kitchener's stitch, and then so they tell you to seam it, and then you pick up stitches for the sleeves. I think I'm just gonna knit the sleeves separately, because they tell you to knit the sleeves flat, and so I just think it's easier to knit them flat, not part of the sweater, than having to constantly turn around the sweater every round, or having to knit bi-directional. Yeah, so that's the plan. Then last week I spoke about how Daruma was going to be releasing information about their spring-summer collection of this year, and they said they were going to do that on Thursday, and so I was really, really excited to check that out. And then on Thursday they released, I guess, some embroidery stuff, which isn't really their main, I guess, their main focus. And then they also revealed their summer fibers. Yeah, they're like the card that shows all the fibers for the summer. And so I was a bit disappointed because I was really looking forward to seeing new designs. But then the day after, they came with all of like the interesting stuff with regards to knitting. And they said that they're going to be releasing their second summer wear pattern book. I actually didn't get the one from last year just because I didn't think I was gonna knit anything up anytime soon. The volume only had 4 patterns, and there was actually only one that kind of appealed to me, and I figured it was gonna take me so long to make it that I should just set it aside and then, I don't know, do it some other time. But yeah, they also showed all of the I guess the kits. Yeah, the kits that they're bringing out as well. So I just quickly wanted to go through everything. Yeah, so I'm looking at their website at the moment, and yeah, on the 20th of February, they are releasing a sweater, which I think is supposed to be made with a wool and cotton blend. And I don't think I am gonna knit this, especially because of the bobbles. I am not a huge fan of bobbles on clothing. And then, yeah, the week after they have a scarf, or yeah, a shawl. What's the difference between a scarf and a shawl? I actually have no idea. But yeah, I was also not really feeling that all that much. And then moving on, in March they have a sweater which I feel like has been released before, but I can't really remember when exactly that was. But I remember at the time I wasn't interested in it, and I'm still not very interested in it. And then they have just a regular cardigan, not too much to talk about. That one's coming out on the 12th of March. And then they have an oversized cardigan. I'm pretty sure this was also from last year. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the first time when I looked at these first couple of designs, I wasn't really interested in them. And then I saw this pullover which had a lot of lace detailing, which seemed very interesting from a technical point of view, I would say. But I'm not too sure if I would knit this. Also, this is a kit, and so I would have to actually save up for this to get it shipped from Japan, and I don't think this sweater might be, or pullover, or I don't even know what the difference is between a pullover and a sweater, but I don't think that this would be worth spending my money on. So, yeah. Then, here is like the most interesting stuff, in my opinion. On the 29th of March, they are coming out with another pullover. This one goes up to one's elbow. And I do have to say, I am not a fan of the colors. And I think there's also bobbles again, because I think it's supposed to be like tulips upside down. I don't know, but the colors don't really speak to me. But what I do think is very interesting is the construction. I think it's very cute seeing the buttons at the back, and I really like the edges of both the body and also at the sleeves. Yeah, so this is definitely a maybe if I manage to find a good color combination. And this one is actually the first pattern that comes from the book Summer Wear Volume 2. Then there's a cardigan. Yeah, there's a cardigan, a flower cardigan, and this seems really interesting. It reminds me a lot of some of these vintage patterns where they have the diamonds and the flowers in inside the diamonds embroidered. I think the reason why I'm pulled towards this is more so the color than actually the garment, the construction, the shape of the garment. But I don't know, I kind of have to think about this one. What I do think is very cute is this summer vest, this lace summer vest. I like how it looks very intricate, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a quite simple and straightforward lace pattern. So this is definitely one piece that I have my eye on. And also, yes, this is also part of the Summer Wear Volume 2. And then there's this other cute little top that has some frills at the bottom. And yeah, I would say pretty straightforward, but I think it could be fun to knit up. Then at the start of April, they have this pullover that has holes in it, and I am kind of interested to see how those holes are created. The way the model is holding up her arm, I can also see that there's just in general quite a bit of lace going on in this piece, so that definitely piques my interest. Unfortunately not part of Summer Wear Volume 2, so I think I might just wait until they make the kit available, and then I can look at some more pictures and see if it's worth it. And then lastly, on the 9th of April, they have this shawl, and I really liked the color combination with this one. It was giving me a lot of like witchy, spooky vibes. However, having a closer look at this one, I can see that the lace pattern shows a tulip, and I'm not really a fan of that motif, so I don't think this is gonna be something that I would want to knit. So yeah, that's everything, and I think again in April they are going to release part 2 of their spring and summer collection. I'll just have to see how that one turns out. I guess to summarize, there are about 1 or 2 pieces, or 2 or 3 pieces that I'm actually interested in giving a go. I think I'm gonna get a digital download of the Summer Wear book, pattern book, and I'll just see what I end up knitting. So that's most of everything that I wanted to talk about. Lastly, I wanted to mention this idea that I had. So I have a ton of scraps. This is the bag that I'm collecting it in. This has been collected over a number of years, and I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do with this. I thought that maybe I could make a pillow out of it, but they're all like different types of, I don't know, different textures. It would be a quite weird pillow, and I was just kind of looking for something, a project that I could actually use this yarn for, because these are not even like, these are either like really tiny scraps like this, or they're swatches that I don't really need. It's not, they're usually not big enough scraps for me to use in another huge project. So after thinking for quite some time, I came up with this idea. I went online and got these. I don't know what they're called anymore, but what I do with this is I take some yarn and then it turns the yarn threads into, again, like the fluffy wool, and I am using this for stuffing for hexagons that I want to knit with scrap yarn that's actually big enough, I want to use scrap yarn to knit these tiny hexagons and then stuff them with the even more unusable scrap yarn and then create a huge blanket out of that. I am pretty sure there's a pattern for this online. I think it's called the beehive blanket or something. I'm not too sure, but since it's so straightforward, I'm just gonna figure it out on my own, because it's just knitting a hexagon, right? So you could just do Judy's magic cast on, increase, decrease, and then do a Kitchener stitch. So that's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna fill it up with all of this stuff, and so I'll have a really nice blanket. So I think I'm mostly going to be knitting this with Drops Nepal because I have still so much of this yarn. And speaking about having a lot of yarn, I have been thinking about how to control, I think, the amount of yarn that enters this home. So I know a lot of people do yarn bans and things like that, but I think the best idea, at least the best idea I've had that works best for me, would be to make sure that every month it's a net zero. So I get to buy yarn only if it's less than the amount of yarn that I've actually used in the month. And so in that way I maintain the amount of yarn that I have, or I even get to reduce it. Having said that, I am aware that if I make it, the yarn is still there, but it's just in clothing form. And so I'm also gonna try and be more aware of that the more I make, the more I try to get out of my wardrobe as well. I mean, for instance, I did that with my socks. I now only own my hand knit socks, and so I ended up giving all the socks that I had previously to my mom, and she's been using them. So I think that's kind of like how I'm gonna be working from now on. Yeah, because I was thinking of maybe first counting all of the yarn that I already have, and it just seemed like such a huge task. I already struggle to keep track of it online. I use Notion, the Notion app for that, and it's nowhere near complete, and just trying to do that just seems like an absolute struggle. So just saying that at the start of this month I'm at 0 and I can go below or higher, preferably below. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yes, so I think that's everything I wanted to say. This is a bit of a shorter episode. Yeah, okay, so that's everything. Have a nice day, and I hope to see you soon in another video. Bye bye.